Good evening. I'm John Wensky, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee, and welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Selco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Shrewsbury Media Connection and Liz Poplowski for their assistance with this broadcast. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting. The first item on our agenda is public participation. Tonight we have not received any requests to speak at public participation. It is available to any and all residents that wish to address the committee regarding concerns pertaining to policy, budget, and performance of the superintendent. In the future, if anybody wishes to speak at public participation, they should contact the chairperson in advance of the next scheduled meeting. The next item on the agenda is chairpersons and members' reports. Colleague, anything to report? No? Okay, great. Next item on the agenda is superintendent's report. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Wensky. One specific mention I want to make is that I had the good fortune today to attend a celebration of our students who are going to be moving up to the RISE program next year, who are currently just graduated from Shrewsbury High School as members of the class of 2024. It was a terrific celebration. I want to congratulate those students. I'm looking forward to seeing them at Maple and Maine come summertime. And then I want to just generally thank everyone involved, certainly for finishing up the school year. Tomorrow is the last day of school. Thankfully, not having too many snow days, just one. And with the way our calendar works, hopefully we continue this wonderful June weather. But tomorrow is an early release day and the last day of school for the 23-24 school year. Thank everyone for all their efforts, our support of our families, the support of our community. The work that our educators and paraeducators and support staff have done all year long to really make things work for our students, and of course the hard work of our students themselves. Although it's a challenging landscape in a variety of ways in public education, there are many successes this year. We heard some report last week. We'll finish that report tonight. A lot we can be proud of, and I certainly remain very proud to be superintendent of this school district. And then in particular, at the end of the school year, there are a lot of events and celebrations. We talked last week, of course, about the high school graduation, but 8th grade celebrations, 4th grade celebrations, field days, special guests, all kinds of ways that families and students and educators and staff have been celebrating the end of the school year and our accomplishments. So that doesn't happen without a lot of effort. So again, I just want to thank everyone for making the end of the school year a positive one for all involved. And that is superintendent's report this evening.
Great, thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is a time schedule appointment. We'll be honoring the late Dr. James Smith. Longtime Shrewsbury High School boys cross-country coach Dr. James Smith passed away in May 2024. Coach Smith retired at the end of the fall of 2023 season after serving as the boys cross-country coach for the last 33 years. Members of his family are here today, along with our athletic director, Jay Costa. If you'd like to make the introductions, should be great.
Thank you. I'm joined by Coach Chris Smith, son of Jim Smith, Coach Wayne Carey, and Coach Dan Mortimer. We would like to thank you, and also Mrs. Coach Smith in the back, and his daughter Emily, who is back home, who is moving back home to Shrewsbury, and we'll be neighbors. So I'm excited to hear that today. I want to say thank you again. I know last week I was able to say a few words on behalf of Jim. Still kind of coming to realization on everything over the last couple of weeks. I was really excited that John Concessions, writer for the Telegram and Gazette, wrote a beautiful article this weekend and did an outstanding job of symbolizing who Jim was. For me, again, working alongside Jim for years has been just an awesome experience. Entertaining at times. He always kept me on my toes. But Jim was one of the most respected coaches in the Midland Wachusett League and even the state of Massachusetts. When you hear about cross country and our program and everything that what our program was about, that was Jim created. Back in, and I wrote in the article when I tried to be a distance runner for about a week, and then he told me to go to the sprints. Jim was always willing to help people and find the right spot for them. And it's just been amazing to see all the stuff, the tributes that have been coming out. And it's kind of ironic tonight. We're honoring Jim, Tom Brady, Jim in the same category. I think absolutely. It's a great honor to him. So I would like just to say thank you to this family for sharing him over the years. He helped me grow as an athlete. He helped me grow as a person, and he helped me grow as an athletic director over the years. And I wanted to say to you guys, thank you very much for allowing us to share him. So I'll turn it over to the guys. And
Thank you.
okay.
So thanks, Jay. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Jim's son, and I've been a coach myself for many years. I followed in my dad's footsteps in Brookline. I'm teacher and coach there. And thank you, Dr. Sawyer, for your remarks at the Shrewsbury High School graduation. I think you were comparing him in the same light as Bill Walton. So certainly flattering. And now Jay is referencing him with Tom Brady. So I'm not sure if he is up, in the pantheon of greats there, but to our family he is. And in terms of the connection with the athletes, I think it's apparent, the contributions he's made to Shrewsbury. So, I grew up in Shrewsbury. My sister and I were products of the Shrewsbury Public Schools, so we're certainly grateful to you and to the town for giving us a great education. My mom retired from the Shrewsbury Public Schools several years ago. She was a teacher at Spring Street. While I think officially this celebration was for my dad's retirement from coaching, he and my mom, after their retirement, were very active in the school system, as reenactors of Artemis and Sarah Ward. So one of the neat things for our family is seeing the student athletes at the high school talk about how they remember both of my parents, especially my mom, either in her role at Spring Street or as Sarah Ward with my dad. Now Emily is moving back. Her kids are going to be attending Patton School. So today the U-Haul truck just rolled back into town. So a little bit sad. My dad had helped our family purchase a house on Old Salem Road, and we were hoping to all be together. And obviously passed a little bit prematurely. But in terms of his coaching in Shrewsbury, I graduated in 1991, and he hadn't coached at that point. He had coached in the 70s and 80s, in early 80s, at Hudson High School for many years. And so I think he was kind of focused on being a dad and kind of a mentor to me when I was in school. He was my scout leader, Troop 114. And then I think it was with my sister really that he coached, for the first time. I was coached by Gordon Warren, who was our athletic director at the time, and we got a nice note from Gordy the other day on the passing of my dad. I think all of you know Nick DiPilato. He was the coach a long time at the time, and he's passed away unfortunately for us. So my dad coached my sister. He got a chance to coach the boys and girls teams for a period of time in the 90s, and I think Jay, you were in 94?
Yeah.
Did you graduate in 94? Okay, so this would have been just very early in my dad's coaching career. When you were mentioning that, he steered you towards the sprints, an interesting thing about joining the coaching staff this year and working with my dad was that we did have a lot of sprinters join the cross-country team. And, in my coaching experience, sprinters generally do soccer or they focus on weight training and, developing their sprint speed in the fall, not running 5K. But lo and behold, we had, some really good sprinters on our cross-country team. And I realized, well, the reason they were there was not necessarily to become better runners. It was to become better people, to just be exposed to the program that my dad had created over many years. So that was one interesting takeaway. I wrote a few things down. I could go through more of some of his coaching accolades, but, for me, helping him through his final season, one of the things that I was really struck by and really made an impact on us was our staff. Dan is basically a member of our family. He ran for my dad in Shrewsbury High School and has been there for us, helping my dad coach the team, but also in the last couple of years as my dad's health has, been an issue. He's been there for us. and of course, Wayne is probably my dad's proudest success story. Wayne, I hope you don't mind if I embarrass you, but Wayne was known as Wildcat back on the team and started, and maybe he could tell you a little bit more about how far he came as a runner, but not only ran well at Shrewsbury High School, but went on to a successful college career at Worcester State. So, so working with these two and my dad this fall was, probably the highlight of my coaching career. Because, I was around other people that cared for my dad. So, Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I met Coach Smith when I was a freshman in high school, not because I ran cross country, actually because I ran track and had some older teammates who told me I had to run cross country the next year, that I would love it. I didn't know what cross country was at the time. And then at one of our dual meets, a good friend of mine now and a teammate then, Tobin Dancy, said, "Oh, Coach Smith's over there against the fence. Go say hi to him, introduce yourself, he'd love to meet you." So I introduced myself to Coach Smith, and at the time was still kind of wondering what cross country was all about, but my teammates convinced me to join. And a couple times over the summer, had some voice messages on the home phone, and they were a little garbled sometimes, but I figured out that they were Coach Smith kind of checking in on me, asking how my summer training was going and if I was planning to do cross country, which at the time seemed odd, but I didn't know how passionate Coach Smith was about cross country and his athletes, and developing a team and supporting the new guys on the team. So it's funny to think back about how that was really my first impression of him. I was like, why is this guy calling me over the summer? But I had a fantastic experience on the cross country team. People would ask me, like, isn't it hard to run that much? But it wasn't really running. It was almost a social experience for me. That first year, just making a lot of friends, having really supportive older teammates. I feel like it was always a huge part of our team that the older guys would sort of mentor the younger ones, help us, get through the day-to-day and the season. And for that reason, it really felt like a family. And I think any one of Coach Smith's athletes would tell you that being on his team, it really did feel like a family, and he felt like family after several years of being your coach. I went on to run in college and had a good experience there, but I tell people that in a way it didn't live up to my high school experience, because we just had such a great team culture of people who want to see each other succeed and support each other, and but ultimately made some really great relationships there. And after a couple of years in college, Coach Smith asked me to come back and work at his running camp over the summer, which was a great way for me to get back in touch with him. I had been sort of keeping tabs on how the high school team was doing, just because I still knew all those guys on the team, and they were doing some great things after I had graduated. And in 2018, when I was about a year out of college, I was still working at camp with Coach Smith, and it occurred to me that this was so much fun that I really should do it for more than 1 week out of the year. And so I asked Coach Smith if I could, volunteer as an assistant coach. I didn't think I could be there every day, just with my full-time job during the day in Connecticut. But he said, yeah, sure, let's work something out. And then about 30 minutes later, he announced to the camp that I was his assistant coach. So we worked it out pretty quickly. Lucky for both of us, because over the last 6 years, we had a lot of fun coaching together, rain or shine, win or lose. I feel like we both got a ton out of it, and certainly it's coaching is a highlight of really my entire year. I feel like when people ask me what's new, I want to tell them how the high school cross country and track teams are doing, because that's really front of mind for me almost all the time. On one of my commutes to or from work, I think in 2019, I heard an author interviewed who had written sort of a slightly satirical self-help book that I've since bought and read. But something that this author was saying on the radio was that you shouldn't look inside yourself for purpose or direction. What you should do instead is look around you at the people or institutions in the world that you think are making the world just a better place to be in. And I've been very lucky that Coach Smith and the cross country team has really been that for me. Just a huge point of inspiration and purpose and community in my life over the last 6 years, and I know it will continue to be.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Sawyer and the school committee for having us. We really appreciate it. Please excuse me if I stumble over words. I'm not very good with speeches. But, yeah, I'm Coach Carey, Wayne Carey. I first started running for Coach Smith back in August of 2015, so toward the beginning of my sophomore year of high school, as a way to kind of forget about the rough events I had my freshman year, which we won't get into. But when I first started out on Coach Smith's team, I was probably like at the very bottom of the team. I was one of the ones who would stop in the middle of every race to just walk, just complain about how long 5K was. But as the years went by, Coach Smith really supported me throughout and helping me become a better runner throughout each year on the team. And I eventually, even through me winning I won the MSTCA Frank Kelly Adversity Award in sometime in the 2016-2017 school year, which was my junior year of high school. And as somebody with that meant a lot to me, considering that I'm a individual on the autism spectrum. So, and Coach, as the years went by, my 5K time just went down. I went from 39:03 sophomore year all the way to, I think, like 21, like somewhere between 21 and 21:30 for 5K by the end of my senior year of cross country of running. And Coach Smith was one of those reasons why his support and his endless support and all that was really what helped me. And he helped me pave the way to my college career. I never thought that I would be one of the top 7 on my college cross-country team at Worcester State, but I was, and that led me to being a 2-time league all-star my sophomore and senior year of cross-country at Worcester State. And I even got my 5K time down all the way to 16:04. And that's all because of Coach Smith. He helped pave the way for me to do that. And once I graduated college, he reached out to me sometime in, I think, September of 2022 to see if I would like to help be an assistant coach for cross country. And I accepted with great jubilee because I always appreciated this team. I love the culture we have, and it was a way for me to get out of the house. So, yeah, working with Coach Smith for these past 2 years has been nothing short of awesome, nothing short of great. These through pasta parties and meets and our little end of the season celebrations, that we're more than just a team. We're a family, like Coach Dan said. And Coach Smith, I will always value Coach Smith and the legacy he had on Shrewsbury and the past almost 10 years that I've known him. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the stories. Appreciate that. Colleagues, any comments? Ms. Heffernan, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so honored that you came to be with us here tonight. My son is a current member of the cross-country team, Simon Murphy, and my nephew, Charlie Heffernan, finished just a couple years ago and graduated. And it's hard for me to explain what the cross-country team has meant to my family. When your older cousin tells you got to do something, your younger cousin listens. And so my son said, all right, I got to do cross-country. He told me I got to do cross-country. And to start as a freshman at the high school, which is a big place, and to begin having seniors know who you are and having this culture of like they're saying hi to me, and I began as a parent to just see so quickly what it was that he does as a coach. That was what we want all of our coaches to do. It's what we want all of our programs to be. I remember I'm a mom of 3, and I'm sure I missed some emails along the way, but one day Simon came home and he had his cross-country jacket, and I thought to myself, I definitely didn't pay for that jacket. I would have remembered that. And it has his name on it. And he said, oh, yeah, you're supposed to pay. Okay. And he said, but he buys them for everybody because everybody needs one. And if they don't pay, that's fine. And I said, I know in this seat what he makes as a stipend as a coach. But it was so emblematic of his desire that everybody feel included, that everybody feel like they're part of that team. And then, it's just continuing thinking about having, you probably know, Jay, that is a very large team. I'm not sure of the exact number, but
73.
there we go. All right, 73. And so sometimes you'd say, cross-country practice seemed to run a little long. And they said, well, yeah, coach was talking. And I was like, okay, coach is talking. And I came to just learn that coach talked. Coach had some stuff he had to say. And that was part of it. And that he could hold 73 kids there for as long as he wanted to talk. And he talked about history, and he talked about the sport, and he talked about how they could do better and how they were as a team. And to hold nearly 75 young people, on a warm September afternoon, and they were very happy to stay there. And the level of respect, and what I came to quickly realize is that the freshmen who were a little confused about what's going on, like, we're here for coach, right? And that he brought that to all of them, and they just so truly cared about him and quickly passed that on. And then the dedication and time he puts in outside of the coaching time. I see you're holding one of his books, right? His books. Mm-hmm. And then to know that like the students read it, they pay attention to it, they go back and they look at it, and here's all of your times and what you've done, and that is so above and beyond. But that each young person really feels like he cares, he's tracking it, he knows it, and he's paying attention. And I don't mean to in any way say that everyone isn't doing that, but he's the leader of that whole group. And then certainly for both Chris and Sarah, I'm so sorry for your loss. But when I think about the other person that held this team together, when Dr. Sawyer and I were talking, I referred to you, and I apologize, as Mrs. Coach. So I'm lovingly known Mrs. Coach, and there's there's Coach, and there's Mrs. Coach. But how important your commitment to the team, to those boys, that the end of the banquet always included some sort of tribute, often around your birthday. But that all of the boys know that she's at all of the meets, she's at all of the things, like just cheering them on, and just this wonderful feeling of family. And so I'm heartbroken for your loss. But I think your dad, he's filled a real need in this community. And I am just so really eternally thankful for what you and your whole family have given to us. Thank you.
It was hard to remember all the names. I worked at it. Can I say a few words?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having us here. It was just wonderful to hear all these great things about Jim. But I'm here to tell you a lot of great things about the runners, about the boys on the team. The last weeks of his life, he was in the ICU in Mass General. And every day, about 5 kids had gotten in a car and come to intensive care unit to see their coach. He couldn't talk to them. He had tubes here and tubes there and everything, but they stayed. They did have not a conversation, but they told him things, I'm sure. The next day, 6 more would come. That whole time, right, Chris? That we were there, and it was like, wow. They'd leave Shrewsbury and get there, and it's not easy to go to the ICU. But that's the kind of kids they are. They just showed so much love and affection for him, and I really adored being called Mrs. Coach. And I know, right, Wayne?
Yep.
Right, Dan?
Of course.
You're going to keep it up? Okay.
Like,
I forgot to mention before that my first year on the team, the first few days of practice, Coach Smith was actually in Colorado with the team at running camp, not just our team, but at that time we had 2 or 3 schools from Massachusetts go each year, as well as schools from elsewhere in the country. So Mrs. Coach was running practice that year. I think that was 2010. August 2010, you were the coach for the first practice.
Yeah.
So
That was a winning season, too, wasn't it?
yeah, we did all right. So Mrs. Coach was actually my first cross country coach, and Jim was my second cross country coach.
Thank you. That's a good memory.
It is.
Yeah. Well, again, too, I feel loved when I, come up there and they tell me, and I say, did you, the last hill that you were on, it was kind of tough, wasn't it? They said, yes, but we heard you cheering. And so we made it up the hill. It's good.
Yeah.
I imagine we'll still go and see some of those races for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Maybe even your grandkids.
Huh?
Maybe even your grandkids will be on the team.
Further comments,
Yeah.
colleagues? Mrs. Boucher, sorry.
I just wanted to express my condolences to your family. I'm very sorry for your loss. My daughter was a 4-year cross-country runner on the girls' team, and I just know what an impact Coach Smith had on that team as well, just the positive environment that, he helped create and the encouragement that he gave the girls as well that were runners. So I just wanted to express that. And I also wanted to thank your family for setting up the scholarship in your dad's name that you have been awarding for the past few years to a deserving senior that's been a runner. And I think that's a beautiful way to continue your husband and your dad's legacy. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My sister deserves credit for that. That was her idea. And yeah, that was my dad's last public appearance. He went to the hospital the next day, so.
When we
Smith
gave
Award,
it,
yeah.
Yep.
Further comments? Ms. Church.
I also want to extend my condolences to you. Thank you for sharing your dad and your husband. When I was reading all the articles about him, what a life well lived, certainly. My kids are too young; they're not at the high school yet. But when I was talking to some families that had the pleasure of being on the cross country team, the word that kept coming up was legend. He was a legend, and he made such an impact on the students and their families. But his impact actually went even further than that. I came to find this out, but I, many years ago, ran indoor and outdoor track at a different town, and I only did it because I played soccer, and it was just to keep me conditioned, and I hated it. I hated every single minute. But my coach actually would talk about another coach that he learned a lot from, and he would give us motivation, and that's the way that he modeled his team over. And it was a lot of community building. He would call during the summer to say, hey, did you go running yet? Come to find out, it was Coach Smith. So that's just to say that, he is a big part of Shrewsbury, but that goes outside of Shrewsbury because I didn't grow up in Shrewsbury. So again, thank you for sharing him with us. He certainly made an impact on quite a few people.
Thank you.
Chris, Sarah, Mrs. Coach, my condolences to you all, really. 33 years in Shrewsbury and such dedication to our students. He's made a profound impact on our community, and I really appreciate you being here tonight, as well as the coaches. Thank you for sharing your stories. Hopefully you found comfort in all the great memories that we have of Coach Smith. And I know I grew up in Shrewsbury. I'm a townie, and I know he's been compared to many legends nationally with Bill Walton and Tom Brady. But I know locally, hearing the names Gordon Warren, who's the former athletic director, Nick DiPilato, and certainly Coach Smith is legendary. So thank you so much for sharing him. And again, my condolences. So.
My final comment will be, when I'm talking to friends, college friends, who are making the journey to be with us in the next couple of days, I keep saying to them, you better get to the church a lot in advance, because there's going to be a lot of young men in that congregation. And if you want a seat, you better get there early.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dr. Sawyer.
True. Thank you. I want to just also give my condolences to all of you, and it's been an honor to have been able to know Coach Smith and have him as part of the Shrewsbury Public Schools community for all the reasons that have been stated. I was pleased to be able to mentor him at graduation, and talked about the culture of positivity that he brought to the program, to the team, a culture of belonging, as was mentioned earlier. And he was all about his student athletes, and his influence certainly improved their lives for the better in so many different ways. And clearly he leaves just a legacy of service, of dedication, and ultimately of love. And that's something that we're very going to miss him greatly. But we're really just beneficiaries of his legacy. So thank you. We're really glad you could come this evening. And again, on behalf of everyone in the school district, our sincere condolences.
We really appreciated you mentioning him at graduation, Joe.
It was my honor.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is a time-scheduled appointment. It is a report on the district goals progress from 2023-2024. This is part 2 from last week. So the action steps were approved by the committee last fall to support Shrewsbury Public Schools 2023 to 2027 strategic plan. It was enclosed report provided status and associated outcomes for these goals. And this is the second of 2 presentations, as I mentioned, and Dr. Sawyer is here to present.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Wensky. And as I mentioned in my report earlier, there's a lot to be proud of, a lot of work that's been done this year, a lot of things to advance the strategic priorities that the district set, that the school committee set, rather, for the district. This is just a reminder of the timeline. We spent the large part of the previous school year, 22-23, looking at where we wanted to go over the next 5 years and losing data, a lot of feedback from the community, ultimately resulted in our new 5-year plan. And then this year, in the summertime and the fall, really looked at what are the 1-year goals we want to set to advance that 5-year vision. And really pleased we came up, I think, with a good plan. And then, we've done some excellent work this year, and now last week and this week we're reporting out on some of those outcomes. And then we'll be repeating, looking ahead to year 2 and continuing to move things forward. This is just a reminder of the fact that our Portrait of a Shrewsbury Graduate is at the center of our vision, certainly cohesive with our mission and values, and the 3 team commitments that are part of this 5-year plan: the commitment to educational excellence, to the enhanced well-being of all, and to optimization of resources. One quick aside, when I meet along with Ms. Malone, and if it's someone in special education student services with Ms. Belcito, to appoint new educators, we ask them to come to discuss our mission and our values in this Portrait of a Shrewsbury Graduate and the strategic plan. And the comments I've heard this year of the people we've appointed, they've been very complimentary of how cohesive it is and how they feel things hang together and reinforce one another. And that's certainly the goal that we had, and that's something that's been pleasing to hear. So I'm here to report out on, just a reminder of some of the highlights we reported on last week. This is we're focusing this evening on the optimization of resources. Among these bubbles of a variety of things, many we reported on last week, but I want to call attention again to the over $680,000 worth of competitive grants or philanthropic donations that have advanced some of this work that takes pressure off of the budget or allows us to do things beyond the budget that we have. We have the 3 different commitments in terms of the priorities for optimization of resources. Really partnering with the community to maintain the strong financial foundation that's been put in place, especially with the most recent operational override. They want to hire and support and retain high-quality, diverse staff. You received the report last week from Ms. Malone and the team working on the teacher diversification project, and we've definitely advanced that work. We want to maximize our partnerships across families in the community. We want to make sure we're allocating our resources effectively and equitably. And then we, of course, want to make sure that our facilities stay strong and we're improving them and addressing overcrowding and our infrastructure needs. So as far as the impact this past school year around our commitment to optimization of resources, just a few highlights here I wanted to mention. There's more details in the full report that you have in your packet. But we felt that we were able to certainly advance some of these priorities like the literacy initiative, our career technical education, social emotional learning, because of those competitive grant funds we were able to receive. And that was really substantial funding that we were able to procure. $250,000 alone were a competitive grant for advancing our literacy initiative, thanks to Ms. Clouder and her team's work. We established a responsible budget for next year, and that, the work that the school committee has done in collaboration with the select board to continue to manage the school department's budget and the select board with the municipal budget in ways that are going to be able to extend the override agreement 2 years beyond the original 4-year commitment, which is a benefit to everyone in our community. Ms. Malone and others worked on updating our what's now called our Guide to Talent Acquisition to make sure our personnel processes remain strong. It's been a hallmark of our district for many years. We did a variety of training with our district leadership team members who are all different, responsible for different aspects of our hiring process, because ultimately the strength of our district rests on having great people in our classrooms teaching and supporting students. Part of that work was developing relationships with colleges and universities. There were 6 different department heads to try to continue to source strong, high-quality candidates as we continue to try to look at bringing on diverse candidates, a diverse candidate pool that's representative of what our community's diversity is as well. There was work done at the K-4 level around providing, making sure that our field study programs are similar by grade and equitable across all our different elementary communities. We had a lot of work. You heard various reports from Dr. Lazat and then Mr. Pizzidlo and Ms. Flynn from the high school around different activities that are providing students with opportunities for real-world work experiences, job shadowing, some of which the program that was at Polar Park that some students walked out with job offers. And so, definitely advancing our work in that career and technical education and career awareness. We've had a report recently from Ms. Balsito. The RISE program, Maple and Maine, has been a huge highlight of the past year. And that's an example that's really at the heart of our community. So when talking about partnering with our community, building partnerships across, I think that's a great shining example of some of the work that we did this past year. And then the last 2 here really focused on infrastructure kinds of issues. There's a resubmission of a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for a potential expansion of Shrewsbury High School to address chronic overcrowding. We won't find out till December whether or not they invite us to move forward with that process. But there was a lot of work, and I appreciate the work Mr. Girardi in particular put into that, along with his counterparts in the Division of Public Buildings, Mr. Tuttle, and the Assistant Town Manager for Operations, Mr. Baldinger. And then finally, it's one bullet point, but it represents a lot of work, that we did convene a pre-K to 4 capital planning study committee, met monthly starting in September, did a lot of studying of the different issues that are looking at our long-term needs for our K to 4 space, our pre-K to 4, my apologies, space. And those findings were, as you know, publicly presented in March to the school committee, and now we have a nice foundation for future school committees to look forward to, and select boards and citizens of the community to look ahead at, what we need. And that's been a hallmark of this community for a long time, is looking ahead around what some of those infrastructure needs are going to be in order to make sure we are providing the quality of school facilities that our students and community expect and deserve. So again, a variety of highlights, a lot of excellent work done in this area. We'll continue to celebrate that, but we'll turn our attention to updating these goals and bringing something to you in the fall around goals for the second year of the plan, the second school year. At this point, I'm happy to hear any comments or answer any questions from the committee.
Great. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Okay, that's a very, very extensive list to look at, and very successful year one of 5, certainly. So thank you very much for the report. Appreciate it. All right, on to the next item on our agenda under Finance and Operations. It's an update on the Oak athletic fees. At our meeting on March 27th, Dr. Sawyer made a number of recommendations for FY25 fees and tuitions. The committee opted to delay a vote on increasing the Oak Middle School athletic fee to allow time for additional consideration in advance of a possible vote at a future meeting. Finance Subcommittee met, Ms. Fritz and Ms. Heffernan, to discuss this topic, and the recommendation is not to make any adjustments to the Oak Middle School athletic fee at this time, as the larger issue of fees will be discussed in more in-depth within the coming year, and Dr. Sawyer concurs with this recommendation. So, any further comments on that?
Sure, just for my colleagues, a couple of months back, I know I personally encouraged that we take a pause and think about what direction we were moving with fees, that as when we zoom out, not looking at each individual fee, that we are a relatively high fee district still. That was something that began before the first override that we talk a lot about with great joy as a way to close the budget gap. But as we are trying to come up with more sustainable and long-term strategies, just as we're doing long-term strategic planning, that the Finance Subcommittee met to try to think through what are the longer-term ways we want to think about fees and fees in our district, what proportion of fees feel appropriate, what is too much, what families carry more burden maybe than others. And so are certainly looking forward to including this in some longer-term conversations that we hope to have over the next school year as we think about the longer-term needs of the district. But given that the adjustment of the Oak Middle School fee itself was fairly small and rather de minimis in terms of the overarching budget, I think it was approximately $6,000 in revenue. Dr. Sawyer can certainly correct me, that it felt like we should have a thoughtful and more longer-term strategy rather than advance the fee at this point in time. So the Finance Subcommittee's recommendation is that we not move forward with any fees, as Mr. Wensky said. Fee increases or changes, sorry.
Ms. Fritz?
And I think when the Oak fee came before us, that's kind of raised that issue as we look at the budget, and we're in a different place than we were years ago when we started implementing fees, and they can be a burden for families. So I think this is a perfect time for us to pause and really start to explore this whole fee structure that we have. And again, it was the Oak fee actually kind of raised that to the surface. So I agree, we should hold on it for now and have a larger and more thoughtful conversation around fees in general as a district.
Sure. Further questions or comments? No? Dr. Sawyer?
I appreciated the feedback from Ms. Heffernan and Ms. Fritz as in their roles in the Finance Subcommittee, and not making any adjustment is not going to affect any of our offerings or anything along those lines. So I concur that a larger conversation is merited, and we'll look forward to doing that work in the coming year.
Great. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is also under Finance and Operations. It's regarding facility rental fees and a vote. At our meeting on May 8th, Mr. Girardi highlighted costs associated with the Shrewsbury Public School facilities rentals and made a recommendation that fees be increased in light of inflation and evolving space and utility needs. The committee requested additional analysis and potentially an updated recommendation in advance of a vote at a subsequent meeting, which is tonight. An updated recommendation has been enclosed in our booklets, and Mr. Girardi is here to present.
Thank you. I appreciate this, and it's a nice segue from the fees, because our facility rental fees, it's really trying to find the right spot for what we're charging for the use of our space, and some really valuable space, and trying to balance that with really being able to offer our community a really nice value and an opportunity to use our spaces, our fields, through this program. So on May 8th, we did present. What I'm going to share tonight is just an update that reflects these cost increases and how we might be able to sustain a program with some revenue adjustments that will allow us to do that. And we're getting a little bit more competitive. Our Group A group, which is our community folks, we do not charge a fee for them. Something that we did take a look at is we are recommending some increases for the services of our rental spaces, such as custodians, audiovisual support, additional custodians, and those do come at a cost. And when we don't charge a cost to our Group A, those costs do have to be covered under another source. So what we did take a look at our Group B and our Group C. Our Group B being some community groups that have some connection with Shrewsbury. And then Group C are for-profit groups or nonprofit groups that have less than 50% of participants residing in Shrewsbury. In those groups, we were tasked with kind of creating a different balance between Group B and Group C to reflect Group B having folks who do reside in Shrewsbury, where there is a value of a fee there. So we did increase that fee slightly to be a little bit more competitive in the local market. In Group C, we did make a more significant adjustment to be competitive again with our local communities. So the grids were presented to you. Something else that we did take a look at is the Shrewsbury High School Auditorium, the Shrewsbury Fieldhouse. They're a bit of a different space value than, say, some of the other schools. So we did parse those out and presented a different fee structure that could really benefit and show the value of those spaces when we're renting them out. One thing that we're not recommending a change from our first recommendation were the service fees. Right? Those are kind of our flat rate fees for our custodians, for our audiovisual supports. But what we do, and what I try to share with you, is we've pulled them out of the total cost of the hourly rental space. And what that allows us to do and allows folks who are renting those spaces is to understand really what the cost is and making sure that we're providing the right service for those folks who are requesting it. So it's very clear that if they're renting a space that requires 2 custodians, that it's very clearly outlined for them prior to them paying for the facility rental. There has been some gray areas, in the past where folks will show up and the custodial level of custodial support that they require wasn't quite clear when they were booking the room. So the new process will allow us to do that and then charge the correct rate so that we're not losing revenue because of some confusion with the booking. So again, there's some comps that I adjusted that show both where we currently are, where our May 8th proposal was, and then where our June 12th proposal is. And again, you can see for the facility rental cost comparison, turf field rentals, we are more competitive with the market. We have great resources. Our fields, the spaces that we have within the schools are really, top-notch, and we want to make sure that our fees are reflecting a top-notch service that we're providing folks. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions and ask for your vote tonight to adjust those fees.
Great. Thank you so much, colleagues. Any questions or comments? Ms. Fritz?
Thank you for taking another look at this, because I think when we at the first view, we didn't feel it was competitive enough, and you hit the nail on the head. I think we have excellent facilities, and we want to make sure that the cost of the use covers that expectation that people have, how well it's run. So I really like this. I think it's a much more competitive, but it's also more appropriate for the venues that people have to choose from. And I also think as we move forward, I think the pandemic might have gotten in the way, but to assess this more regularly. With the cost of inflation, who knows what we may have down the road. So I just think we're in a good spot now, but to maybe every 2 years, every 3 years, take a look at it.
Thank you. And to speak to that just a little, some of the revenue points here with the use of the facilities, trying to generate the revenue to have upkeep with the spaces that are being used. A good example is we're replacing the winches on the basketball hoops, the ones that kind of crank pretty consistently. That's a really good example of how, we're renting out the courts to basketball teams and they're using them quite frequently. Some wear and tear on those winches is a perfect example of how that revenue would help our program operate and sustain over time.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Further comments, questions? Ms. Heffernan, yeah.
Yeah, I also appreciate the extra effort to go back and look at this a little more, and would just want to second Ms. Frisch's comments that we keep our eye on this. I think having it go quite as long as it did, we definitely were both out of market, but also as we make changes, we want to make sure, are the impacts what we're hoping for? Are we actually losing revenue because we raised the fee too high? To your point, we're trying to hit a sweet spot, and we don't know. There are not a lot of easy comparables in terms of usage, because people care about distance and they're not going to go too far. And so, I'd certainly love even a written update next year about what do we think the difference was in terms of revenue, but also the number of renters. If for each renter we made more money, but we have less renters, obviously that doesn't always pay out. But to also, as Ms. Fritz has said, to kind of make sure we're staying with the market. And so I think that fees like this should definitely be assessed every couple of years. But I'd love a status report, because I hope we've gotten it right, but we need to see, right? We need to look at the data and know. So thank you very much, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Drury, for coming back at this. I agree with the comments about looking at this on a regular basis. And I mean, I think having been on that turf subcommittee, knowing how attractive the location is, I mean, for a lot of events, I think it's good, within proximity of 290, and we offer really great facilities to organizations. So appreciate you following up on this. It's good. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
I appreciate the additional work that Mr. Girardi and Ms. Yu did to look at a little more deeply at some of the comps, and I think it's a reasonable and appropriate recommendation, and ask that you support it.
Great. All right, colleagues, we need to take a vote on this. So I need a motion that the committee vote to approve the updated facility rental fee schedule as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thanks so much. And I think you need to stay there because we're moving on to the next item on our agenda under finance and operations. It is the elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3 fund update and vote. The plan for Shrewsbury's use of American Rescue Plan elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds was approved in October of 2021. In January of 2023, the committee reviewed and approved a proposed amendment to the spending plan. The enclosed memo in our booklet details how funds were used in FY24 and makes recommendations for the planned use of remaining ESSER funds prior to the September 30th, 2024 deadline to ensure they meet the grant requirements and are aligned with key district priorities. And I'll hand it back to Mr. Girardi.
Thank you. And as you stated, we're approaching our deadline of September 30th, 2024 to expense these funds. In FY24, we were able to really target the criteria that was set back in January of 2023. And the chart on page 2, I think it outlines the areas in which monies were expensed this year in the total of $426,576. It includes the Shrewsbury High School Adjustment Counselor, literacy tutor work, the summer academy stipends, some fringe benefits, some literacy consultation, high-quality literacy and curriculum materials, so a number of materials, and then it also supported the late bus service in grades 5 through 12, which was very appreciated to the point where we are moving it into the operating budget because it's such a valuable resource to our community. That leaves us with a remaining $218,389 to expense beyond FY24. So our planned use for FY25, again, using more funds for our literacy tutor hours at the elementary and middle school levels in the amount of $55,000. We are not moving forward with another full summer academy, but we are targeting some we are looking at real targeted supports for our most at-risk students during the summer months. by offering tutoring services for those students, and then including some funds for transportation for those students and students attending our summer program for our ESL, or our English as a second language. What that allows us to do is to really tackle the equity piece that's in that 20% that we must expense that does cover those costs, making sure that transportation to those programs is not an obstacle for our most at-risk students. As we did this past year, plan to use $50,000 of these grant funds in a manner that enables us to provide the consultation and training from a literacy expert. We are moving into our second year, first full year of implementation for all teachers with our literacy program, and having this consultation is a really important feature of that. And then the remaining $83,293 is planned to purchase one-time, high-quality materials with a focus on supporting literacy instruction. So the table on page 4 shows that spend down plan going to zero with all of those funds expensed by September 30th, 2024. So as with all grants, some of these amounts may be adjusted in each category depending on actual expenses, with the expectation that all grant funds will be expended for eligible uses by the deadline. And I request that you vote to support this updated plan for the use of remaining ESSER III funds. Questions I'll be happy to ask, and thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Mr. Boucher.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Girardi. I'm very supportive of this use of the ESSER III funds. I'm happy that we're going to be using these funds to address our ongoing initiatives with regard to literacy. I think this is certainly what this money was intended for, to address the effects of the pandemic, and I'm happy to support your proposal. Thank you.
Just one final piece, if I may. A lot of districts are facing a fiscal cliff based on how their ESSER III funds were being used. This plan really does give us a soft landing for those funds and one-time expenses, and it leverages a really nice support of some really important programming moving forward.
Ms. Heffernan.
Yeah, thank you again for the agree all of the information to help us understand what we're doing. Just in terms of the planned use of the funds for September 30th, I'd just like to understand a little bit more the staff wages that are offset throughout the school year. Are we submitting that the ESSER III funds will be used for curriculum materials and then using those funds for staff, or are we saying they're for staff, but we think that there's a reason that we can use them past September 30th? Just help me understand
Sure.
what goes to what are we telling the federal government?
Yeah,
And
so
even though
that
that's
final
important
statement,
math.
that's our planned use. It does say that we might have to shift some funds between different categories based on timing. If those funds are not able to be expensed by the September 30th, there may be some adjustments within the allocated percentages that we can make shift funds to be able to do that work.
And so,
I think just to add on, page 3, what it mentions is that we'll spend that $55,000 on eligible materials and different things, so that will offset the cost of being able to pay the tutors throughout the year. So it's not a direct expense on the tutors, but it's going to be supporting that work, and then we'll have to make a decision in the next budget cycle whether or not to, the intent would be to bring those curriculum numbers back. If we wanted to keep those tutor hours beyond next year, we'd need to add something to the budget in the following year. But I think the point is, the intent is to make sure that we leverage these funds in a way that's enables us to provide that kind of support throughout the year.
Mr. Girardi, was the same true with the literacy consultation?
That's correct.
That it would be, sort of the same note applies in some ways on both of those items.
That's correct.
And I guess our understanding is that's acceptable to I think the federal government's a little bit of a stickler about these things. So do we have any reason to think that sums to $105,000? I think it makes perfect sense. There's accounting that happens every year in every school district across America to move between line items. But do we have any reason to see that as any sort of risk, or that we shouldn't be offsetting with a higher number of curriculum materials, for instance, that we know are deemed an acceptable use?
We don't at this time. There's percentage ranges that we're well within, that allows us to adjust some costs for each of the different categories of the ESSER III grant.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. All right. Is there any further comments?
No, I support the approach, and again, we'll make sure that, all the expenses are on, within the categories. I think that to amplify what Mr. Girardi just mentioned, that there are a lot of districts that haven't expended a good deal of their funds and need to make sure that they do. And so actually some of the typical movement between categories and the state has been sort of relaxing some of those pieces. That doesn't really necessarily apply to us, but the state is making sure that people spend their money down. But I think that we are in a much stronger place than a lot of other places in terms of what we have leveraged the funds for. I'm confident that, we'll certainly spend them on all eligible uses, and want to sort of illustrate what the intent of the impact is, in terms of being within, as Ms. Boucher mentioned, kind of the intent to try to address learning loss, and particularly the area of literacy. And that's something that I think has been a strength of how we've used the funds, and will continue to do so. I support it and would ask that you vote to support the plan of how to approach spending the remainder of these funds.
Great. Okay, colleagues, we need to take a vote. So I need a motion that the committee vote to approve updating the plan for the use of remaining elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER 3 grant funds as presented.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, next item on the agenda is also under Finance and Operations. It's an FY25 non-represented staff compensation adjustment. It also requires a vote. Each year, the superintendent recommends changes to compensation rates for the coming fiscal year for non-represented staff, and this includes secretaries, clerical support staff, information technology support staff, et cetera. A memo was provided by Dr. Sawyer with information about potential rate increases, which was enclosed. And after discussion, the committee will be asked to vote on the rate increase proposed. So Dr. Sawyer, do you want to take it away?
Thank you. Just a brief history over the past few fiscal years. Back in fiscal year 21, where we had our financial crisis prior to the most recent override, there was a total wage freeze for this category of our employees, which we deeply appreciated what the impact was on that, and that was something that obviously the school committee preferred not to do, but felt it was necessary at the time to maintain as many of the resources as we could for the educational program. The following year, in order to sort of make up ground after that wage freeze, post-override, there was a 4% cost of living adjustment to move them more to where they would have been with their rates. The following year, there was a 2.25% cost of living adjustment with an additional top step that was added that was 2% higher. Most of the employees in this category on top step, for those a net 4.25% increase for most staff. And then for the current year, there was a 3% cost of living adjustment. I did recommend, based on our budget, that you consider up to a 3% increase in the compensation for these positions. There's a table in your packet that illustrates the different hourly rates at different levels of COLA percentages. In terms of your consideration this evening, I think certainly it's within the budget to give up to a 3% piece, and I am comfortable if you would choose to do that, but I certainly would defer to the school committee in terms of your perspective around where you'd like to land as far as this adjustment for this group of staff.
Great. Colleagues, questions or comments? Right, I think we get, all right, we need to take a vote. And I need a motion that the school committee vote to approve compensation adjustments of 3% to non-represented staff for FY25.
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, the next item on the agenda, also under Finance and Operations, is FY24 budget update and vote on fund transfers. Mr. Girardi is here to present final update on the FY24 budget status. Mr. Girardi.
All right, thank you. So this is our third of 3 budget updates throughout the course of the year. When this report was run, we did it on June 6th, which was 93% of the way through our fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. 175 days through the 180-day school year. So we're closing down pretty quickly. And what this represents is, the reported expenditures and encumbrances through June 6th. We do still have, a couple weeks of closing out and making sure that all goes right, but we're pretty close to, again, landing this plane. So as we've done in past reports, is we report out on the different categories in which our budget describes our expenses and the different budget categories, our areas. And they look fairly similar to the other budget presentations that we've done throughout the course of this year. So our A1 category, again, we're just 1% under budget and on pace to finish slightly under budget for these individual contracts. This is our administration, our central office folks, principals, Unit B, folks that you were just referring to in some of those wage increases. Our Unit A, which is our teachers and nurses, which is our largest and our largest group and about 80% of the overall budget. We're just we're less than 1% under budget. Again, a well-planned, budget here, highly stable, and based on ongoing personnel activity, leaves, resignations, we're right on point where we want to be. Our aides, ABA, and paraprofessionals, we're 4.2% under. Again, there we're trending under due to personnel turnover, vacancies, positions that were created for the budget that have gone unfilled. Secretaries, technology, and other non-represented, we're 0.8% over, so pretty much right at the point where we want to be. Some temporary increases for overlap and ongoing training due to payroll and retirements, some IT overtime, some additional summer courier work where we're clearing out the warehouse. Substitutes, which are our daily subs, our long-term subs, and our substitute nurses, we're 4% under. And that's a pretty accurate, with only a handful of days left in the school year. We're closing in on that number, solidifying by the end of this week. But we are slightly under in each of those different categories, which is nice, seeing that we had to make an adjustment last year to beef that category up. Our other wages, we had some larger staffing costs for some summer special education. So we're slightly over there. It's 6%, but it's a smaller category, so the actual dollars in that are not quite as impactful as they would be in some of the larger categories. Our employee benefits, we're 3.9% over, and that's just greater than estimated sick leave sellback for our retiring educators. Our regular education and vocational transportation, we're 1.2% over. Again, similar story to what we've been presenting through the course of the year. Our McKinney-Vento mandated homeless and foster care transportation costs, both for our shelter and non-shelter students, is much higher than what we had budgeted. Our special education transportation, again, 7.7% over. And again, that's trending due to the higher rates for alternative providers where the usual provider was lacking capacity this year. Special education tuitions, a nice story here. Our final projections have us slightly under budget based on the final updated placements and tuition payments. That's a good news story. Vocational and recovery high school tuitions, again, 4.3% under. We did make some adjustments with 2 students being added late spring, but we're still trending under our budgeted number for FY24 with the number of students who are attending vocational schools. So our D categories, and this is a place where as we're looking at the budget and there's some slight savings, with some of those savings, we're able to do some end-of-year purchasing on a small scale. Some of the things that we've been targeting at the end of the school year are some of the IT requests, some one-time spending for IT, and some safety and security which is things that have been recommended when we had our safety and security audit back in the fall. So our administrative contract services were 10.5% under budget on some legal costs and some contracted services. Our educational contracted services were over by 13.7%. And that's, contracting out with outside agencies that supplement some staffing vacancies, such as psychological testing is one of those areas. Textbooks and curriculum materials, 6% over, and that overage is due to some year-end investment in some literacy materials. That was another place where we were able to use some savings this year to do some one-time purchasing, which just helps us in out years to be ahead of the curve for textbooks and curriculum. Professional development, we're 4.7% under, slightly under planned investment. Some consulting services shifted to grant funding, so there's some savings there. Educational supplies and materials, 6% over. That's where our year-end investments in instructional technology, some visual arts materials whose costs have, the percentage of those materials, the costs are skyrocketing in some of those areas, and we're trying to get ahead of some of that cost for FY25. Some other miscellaneous, year-end investment in the network security services, some school security cameras, brought that category to 10.7% over. Equipment, 16.8% over. That's our year-end investment in technology hardware. And then, again, this category, it's a small category. We're 27.5% over in our utilities. We are going through our one-time town-wide system upgrade. We were able to get some things in now so that that upgrade can happen over the course of the summer and be ready to begin next school year. So our circuit breaker fund, we began FY24 with a fund of $3.4 million on the account. It was the maximum allowable amount to carry forward, which is 75% at the close, and agreed to target 75% to carry forward at the close of fiscal year, $2.63 million, which is considered a strong reserve to achieve financial goals and reduce budgetary risk given the volatility of out-of-district tuition cost increases and other potential needs. Our special education out-of-district tuitions are now projected below budget by $22,850 and coming in slightly under projection based on final tuition payments. As part of our circuit breaker budget plan for FY25, $400,000 of the positive budget variance from this current year is being carried forward beyond the original 75%. This satisfies the planned $2.648 million a circuit breaker reserve at the end of FY24, includes additional $400,000 for a total of just over $3.048 million to be carried forward into FY25. This funding is important as the increased projection for next year's special education out-of-district tuition amount is going to require an estimated increase of circuit breaker funds that will end FY25 at just over 50% of the maximum carry forward. All right, so I spoke to the ESSER 3 funding already, but this just shows the spend down plan that we will be at 100% of use for ESSER 3 by September 30th, 2024. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 have been fully expensed by the time their deadlines occurred. Our emergency homeless grant, we continue to educate 52 students from our emergency homeless shelter. We received two different grants. There's the $1,000 for each student, one-time payment. And then the second is we receive $104 per student per day for the time that they are enrolled in our district. We track the number of days that they attend. We submit that information to the Department of Education, and we're waiting for our third and final payment that should provide just over $900,000 in FY24 if we continue to have the 52 eligible students through the entire school year, which we will. So the total anticipated reimbursement for all grants is $978,227. We're anticipating in FY '24 that we'll spend about $528,000 of that for educating those 52 students in Shrewsbury Public Schools. So we have an anticipated carry forward of this grant into FY '25 of just over $450,000. This is important as the state has not committed any additional funding for next year. So we were very thoughtful in making sure that we had a buffer, a carry forward to support those students if we're not receiving additional funding. Our McKinney-Vento homeless transportation, again, due to transporting our emergency homeless students and other students who would fall under the McKinney-Vento homeless transportation, where we budgeted this year at $81,885. We're currently projecting an end-of-year cost of $291,229. So we're running, just over $200,000 over this budget. These will likely incur more of these expenses into next school year, but we'll continue to monitor that. We did make some market adjustment in the current FY '25 budget, but something to keep an eye on. All right. So finally, it's recommended using, the motion that the school committee vote to authorize budget transfers between accounts to bring each account to zero at the end of the year. What was presented to you in each category does just that.
Great. Thank you very much for the report. Colleagues, any questions or comments? No. Good. All right. Thank you for the report. Appreciate you landing the FY '24 financial plan for us.
Thank you.
That was a lot. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
Appreciate the hard work that Mr. Girardi and Ms. Fitzpatrick in his office and the rest of the team did to monitor this on an ongoing basis and to make sure we were in a strong position. And would ask that you vote so we can close out the fiscal year.
Sounds good. Okay, colleagues, I need a motion that the committee vote to authorize the administration to make budget transfers from the original budget plan as necessary to eliminate deficits and surpluses with the intent of fully expending the total FY '24 appropriation by June 30th, 2024 and balancing all accounts.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye. Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right. The next item on our agenda is also under Finance and Operations, updated stipends for extra duties, and will require a vote. So the terms of the Shrewsbury Education Association Unit A contract require periodic negotiations of the amounts for extra duty stipends for staff who serve as club advisors, and that were not included in the contract when it was approved. I know the list has been enclosed in terms of the stipends for new clubs or extra duty assignments that are in their third year of operation or will be next year, and the rates that have been negotiated between the school committee and the Shrewsbury Education Association for approval. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you. And this is a fairly routine item. Again, the work's been done, and we presented to you in an executive session, and the Shrewsbury Education Association concurs with the amounts which are aligned with some existing stipends for similar kinds of clubs. So it allows us to formalize those and make sure that the staff who are doing that extra duty, which we very much appreciate, because as we've discussed, particularly post-pandemic, engaging students with different kinds of activities outside of the core academic program is really critical for them to feel connected to their school community, gain different kinds of experiences, and we're pleased that these different staff stepped up to help provide those experiences, and ask that you vote to authorize this so we can move forward.
Great. Further questions or comments? No? All right. Therefore, I need a motion that the committee vote to approve the updated list of extra duty roles and stipends as presented.
So moved?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye. Aye. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, the next item is under new business, and it is the evaluation of the superintendent. Also require a vote. So the superintendent's performance evaluation provides feedback on Dr. Sawyer's performance from May of 2023 through the present. Ms. Sandy Fritz, committee chair during the time, has written a composite evaluation based on information provided by Dr. Sawyer as well as input from the other committee members, which she'll summarize at this meeting. School committee members are also encouraged to add commentary and feedback as they see fit. And here to present the composite is Ms. Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Wensky. The superintendent's evaluation was a period of May 23 through April of 24. And the first part of the evaluation is the superintendent's goals for the 23 through 24 school year. The first one is the student learning goal. By April of 24, the superintendent of schools will have presented a fiscal year 25 budget plan that outlines the district's fiscal priorities for advancing student learning, and in collaboration with other district leaders will have effectively communicated these priorities to stakeholders in order to gain support for the budget plan. The committee rated Dr. Sawyer as having met that goal. The fiscal year 25 budget process was comprehensive and thoughtful. The district's use of data assessments to assist with identifying the areas of highest need and appropriate interventions to improve student learning and learning gaps allowed for targeted use of funds in areas of need and aligned with the district's goals and priorities. Dr. Sawyer's reports are data-driven and provided the committee with the rate of progress achieved in the area of student academic improvement. The addition of executive summaries outlining key investments and efficiencies was incredibly helpful for messaging the district's needs, and they provided clear identification of how the FY25 school department budget recommendation was connected to our strategic priorities and goals. Make sure I'm on the right line, as well as educational service needs. The committee appreciated that its constructive feedback given to district leadership and Dr. Sawyer regarding the original budget proposal was heard and taken under advisement. Multiple conversations and workshops followed to work through questions, concerns, and suggestions in a collaborative manner to reach a final budget recommendation for presentation at the annual town meeting that did align again with our goals, priorities, and targeted key needs. During the fiscal year 25 school department budget process, the committee did not receive any emails or other specific communication regarding the school department's budget proposal, nor did any member of the public attend our annual budget hearing to ask questions. At the May 24 annual town meeting members did not ask any financial questions specific to the recommended budget request, and this is indicative of our district's transparent budget process, strong and clear communication of needs, as well as the community's trust in Dr. Sawyer's overall management of the school district and his continued prudent use of available funds for educational services. His second goal is a professional practice goal, and by April of 24, the superintendent of schools will have developed and implemented updates to both external and internal communication protocols in order to improve the effectiveness of communication with families and staff. Dr. Sawyer received a rating of some progress. The 23 through 24 school year provided challenges requiring Dr. Sawyer to shift his time and focus, leaving less time to work on the goals he has set for himself at the beginning of the year. However, he did spend time on his own professional development to better communicate more effectively, to advance equity, and to build skills regarding leading and communicating on complex societal issues. He worked to streamline communications with staff and families through the implementation of Parent Square. While he did not fully meet this goal, throughout the year, Dr. Sawyer communicated regularly with staff, families, and the community to inform them about various school projects, areas of concern, and district highlights. Effective communication is vital for success, and the committee encourages Dr. Sawyer to continue to focus in this area during the next school year. The final personal goal was around district strategic goals, and we feel that Dr. Sawyer has met that progress this year. Under Dr. Sawyer's leadership, significant work was done during the past school year, despite the district experiencing some new and unexpected challenges. Key areas of work this year included the advancement of career technical education, quickly and effectively responding to the educational and overall needs of the students from the emergency shelter, implementation of data-driven key initiatives to improve the academic interventions for K through 6 literacy program, partnering with an outside audit firm to assess, complete, and deliver to the community a report assessing the district's safety and security practices, the formation of the preschool through grade 4 capital planning committee to assess and develop a report to shape the district's future path for capital investments in pre-K through grade 4 buildings, and significant growth of the RISE program, and the highly successful opening of the Maple in Maine, the retail component of that program. Next are the standards for evaluation, and the first standard is under instructional leadership, and the committee gave Dr. Sawyer an overall rating of proficient. The district's strategic plan was instrumental in providing Dr. Sawyer with a clear vision and required metrics to assist with his instructional leadership. Over the past year, there has been increased emphasis on data collection and the use of it to inform and guide the district's work. By encouraging a data-driven culture that focuses on the areas of critical needs based on measurable, attainable results, the district can align services and budget dollars in areas of greatest need. The ability to quickly identify student needs and provide appropriate intervention supports is vitally important for overall academic success. The focus on career and technical education has been one of the major highlights of this academic year. Dr. Sawyer challenged his team to find innovative ways to bring CTE to all high school students, and there was significant gains made during the past year. Educational services now go beyond the classroom, and students are being provided with additional ways to explore areas of interest. Another key initiative was the first phase of implementation of the district's new literacy program. Data provided through various assessments allowed the district to quickly identify students who are at risk or are having trouble mastering a concept and are able to provide them with correct supports. Dr. Sawyer's contributions through guidance and support of key initiatives continue to improve educational services for all students. The second standard is management and operations. Dr. Sawyer received an overall rating of exemplary. Shrewsbury Public Schools is a highly efficient and effective district due to Dr. Sawyer's hard work and dedication to public education. Public education is challenging work, and he has successfully navigated the school district through the uncertainty of providing educational services during the pandemic and then focusing on improving resulting learning gaps. During the past year, his expertise and experience was instrumental in quickly assessing and responding to the needs of students at the emergency shelter. The district proactively identified needs, added key staff, and implemented the elementary transition program. Dr. Sawyer served on the statewide Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Legislative Committee, where he worked with other superintendents to promote legislation that would be helpful to school districts and to raise cautions regarding legislation that might be well-intentioned but could have unintended consequences for public education. In addition, Dr. Sawyer provided significant time and support to onboard the new Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, and he took on significant human resource responsibilities due to an extended absence. That required him to spend time dealing with personnel issues and several hiring processes. The institutional knowledge and skills Dr. Sawyer gained during his tenure with the district are extremely valuable, as he can quickly pivot to assist with a variety of needs. However, when this occurs, it does take him away from his own important work of leading the district. The committee would like to see Dr. Sawyer delegate some tasks and meetings to the district's extended management team and to develop contingency plans, particularly for central office roles, so the district can remain agile and ensure that day-to-day operations remain consistent without needing to pull him away from his own important duties. The third standard is family and community engagement. The committee gave Dr. Sawyer an overall rating of exemplary. After survey results indicated that families and the community were concerned with the amount and timing of communication from the district, under Dr. Sawyer's leadership, the Parent Square communication platform was implemented to make it easier for individuals to receive all communications. Written and verbal communication with the school committee continues to be timely and provides the information we need to perform our role. During the past year, the committee made requests for information, including the type and format, and Dr. Sawyer was open to requests and responded accordingly. Transparency is a hallmark of the district, and Dr. Sawyer Dr. Sawyer proactively seeks input from students, staff, families, the school committee, and the community on a variety of issues. He consistently drives collaboration and carefully considers all feedback prior to making recommendations. A key example of exemplary communication this year was Dr. Sawyer's State of the District address, where he delivered a very conversational, candid perspective of the successes and challenges of the district. The fourth standard is under professional culture, and Dr. Sawyer received a overall score of exemplary. On a consistent basis, Dr. Sawyer demonstrates his commitment to lifelong learning and to building a positive culture among his team and within each of the school buildings. He is extremely well respected by staff and communicates the values embedded in the district's portrait of a graduate. The rise in alarming student behaviors has led to challenges for staff and students at all levels, and Dr. Sawyer has acknowledged the issues this has created for the district. Solving for these challenges and ultimately minimizing or reducing these behaviors will require further adoption of clinically sophisticated interventions and more pro-social supports for all students. During the past year, Dr. Sawyer has had to handle multiple complex issues and did so in a manner that was fair and supported staff and students. Dr. Sawyer's leadership development work has helped him further his cultural proficiency and exposed him to examples of work from superintendents across the country and training experts in communicating and leading in the current political climate. The professional culture of Shrewsbury Public Schools is strong, with the focus on academic success of all students. This culture starts from the top and is prevalent in all of the work of all staff. Dr. Sawyer's overall rating for this year is exemplary. Dr. Sawyer goes above and beyond for the Shrewsbury Public Schools. He's thoughtful, articulate, transparent, and thorough in his leadership and communication and management of our district. During the past year, which has been especially challenging for the district staff, he provided consistent leadership and proactively listened to concerns and suggestions. His vision and leadership continue to be an asset to Shrewsbury. Dr. Sawyer's leadership and passion for education is reflected in the quality of work our district produces. His work remains student-focused, and he fosters a professional climate of continued learning and improvement, yet he also recognizes the complexities and changing environment of public education. He actively advocates for funding that will provide the district and staff with the resources needed to meet student needs and the community's demand for a high-performing school district. Despite some significant challenges this year, Shrewsbury Public Schools continues to be a highly successful district and one that is also fiscally responsible and provides strong return on taxpayers' investment in public education due to the exemplary work and leadership of Dr. Sawyer.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Colleagues, any further comments or questions? Ms. Boucher.
I would just like to thank Dr. Sawyer for his excellent work leading our district this year and a few of his accomplishments that I would like to highlight. I think incorporating the students from the emergency shelter into our school community very quickly and in a very thoughtful way last summer into the fall. Especially wanted to highlight the transition program that was created and implemented. I think that was a wonderful way to kind of help those students and to make them feel a part of our community. I'd also like to highlight the pre-K to 4 space study. Dr. Sawyer did an excellent job with the study committee of a very complex issue. He did a nice job of incorporating the feedback of all different stakeholders and creating a great roadmap forward for our community and district to look at those capital needs. I'd also like to highlight the approach that's been taken and forwarded this year, I think, on really looking at data to kind of help with different aspects of the management of the district, especially with regard to interventions concerning at-risk students and helping with literacy initiatives and learning loss. I think that work has been very important and been forwarded greatly this year, and just want to see that obviously continue. Just in closing, I'd like to thank Dr. Sawyer for his outstanding leadership of the district during a challenging school year this year. He continues to create a very positive culture which values academic excellence and the well-being of all students and staff.
Straightforward.
I mean, I think the evaluation said a lot, but Dr. Sawyer, I think you've been thoughtful and available, transparent, and you've built a very positive community within our district. This year, especially with some of the challenges we've seen, you've remained steadfast, you've listened, and you've acted. You're both student and staff focused, and you are a fierce advocate for both groups and for our district as a whole. You look at current issues the district is facing while also trying to plan for our future and balance the two. You ask for feedback, and you take great consideration of that feedback. I'm not really sure when you sleep with all the things that you're doing, but I've greatly enjoyed working with you, especially this being my first year on the committee. And now more than ever, I do believe that we're incredibly lucky to have you, and your leadership has made our district as excellent as it is.
Thank you. Ms. Heffernan? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll continue the accolades just a little bit longer, Dr. Sawyer's. Apologies. I think our district embodies both high standards, but also a culture of belonging and respect for both staff and students, and I think that starts at the top. And whether it's us learning at some point in time about whatever summer reading you're doing with your leadership team, because you have some ongoing learning and demonstrate sort of lifelong learning to your staff, all the way through even just reminding us tonight that in the hiring process, it's a busy time right now for hiring for any school system, that we're talking about the portrait of a graduate and what do we want, and so setting the culture as people come in the door. And so certainly in the different roles that I play as both a parent and a school committee member, I believe while there's lots of lists of individual projects that I think your work is important on, holistically, your leadership is one of the things that makes Shrewsbury a great district, and so I continue to be very grateful that we have you in charge. I was very, very grateful during COVID. I'm happy to be on the other side of that. But as we continue to sort of right the ship and know that we continue to have places and ways in which we will struggle, as any institution of this size will have, I'm very happy to have you at the helm.
Ms. Fritz, yeah.
And I think as I received all of your evaluations and compiling them, and a lot was done this year. It was a very stressful year, I think, for administration, for teachers, and there was a lot of complex issues that happened. And when you're chair, you might hear more about it. And then when I reflect, I'm like, even though all of that was going on, a lot of really good work and reports, and we're moving things along at a pretty good pace as well. But the one thing that resonated with me this year, because we had a couple of visits. We were at the high school, might have been at the elementary school, and when you're walking around with Dr. Sawyer, you're like, we're doing what we're having to do, but if a student comes by or a group of students, he always stops, talks to the students, knows their names, engages with them, and to me, that just shows, like, yes, you're leading this district, but you are totally engaged at the, where the rubber meets the road with these kids who are in school getting the best education we can provide. But that just really resonated with me this year, because I saw it a couple of times, and I think that's a hallmark of what you show in leadership. It's a hard job, but you're also caring, concerned, and make sure everybody is welcomed and considered. So thank you. We are extremely fortunate to have you.
Great. I know this is Dr. Sawyer's favorite time of the year. Evaluated in public on TV, I can't imagine. I know I have my evaluation in private, and that's hard enough. But yeah, I mean, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Certainly, I really appreciate the thoughtful, transparent, data-driven approach you take to leading our district. It's super important, and it's not that way in a lot of districts. And I have to say, it was a pleasure to present town meeting with all the selected accomplishments from this year. And there were significant lists, and we could only include a few. And as Ms. Heffernan said, it does start at the top. I know it does take a village, but leadership starts at the top, and you exemplify a great leader in public education. And I also appreciate the engagement that you have with students and staff and our community, not just through written communication and emails, but also the engagement that I've seen in the various meetings that we've had in the schools, and just engaging with students, and just it's really awesome to see that. And just staying laser focused on the well-being of staff and students, I think, is super important. And again, just year one of a 5-year strategic plan with all the things that we've seen, that we've accomplished, in large part, it's because of your leadership. So thank you so much. And Dr. Sawyer, any other comments?
Thank you. I mean, I'm humbled and appreciative of the evaluation and all of your comments, and I deeply appreciate them. You know, certainly, and I want to be really clear, there's, you know, the things that were mentioned and things that have happened this year in the district, the people doing the work that deserve the thanks and the praise. I mean, the way that we were able to respond to receiving, you know, unexpected students in a new shelter. I had the opportunity to support people and say yes to a lot of good ideas, including the elementary transition program. You know, the team of folks we have is extraordinary. I certainly want to thank the school committee for your support. I've always felt the support and the appreciation for the, you know, that this is complex work that people are doing, and that your advocacy for resources and to make sure we're focusing and I think we have a good plan that's focused on the right things. Thanks to your engagement with that. Certainly want to thank Beth McCollum, the executive assistant that does so much to support my work, the central office team, and overall with everyone there, and of course particularly the leaders, the assistant superintendents who do so much work to make sure that all of these different initiatives and goals are advancing. The principals who are doing that work in the building, it was an outstanding team of principals, and then a district leadership team beyond that. It's really a privilege to work with so many dedicated and thoughtful and talented people. Really appreciate the municipal leadership and the partnership we have with Mr. Mizikar and his team. It really is here in Town Hall. Makes a difference in terms of the whole operation, because we have to work in, you know, public safety, all those different departments. And then, you know, particularly I want to thank the frontline staff, the teachers, the specialists, the para-educators, the support staff, the secretaries, the nurses, everyone. They're the ones who make it happen in the schools, and it's my privilege to be able to hopefully support the good work that they're doing and empower them to do that work. I'm grateful to the community, certainly families here, for supporting their children. We have an excellent culture, and that can't just be on the side of the school buildings. If, you know, the families' cultures are really important in terms of promoting education and taking and promoting doing well in school, and we do really have a terrific community here. And, you know, the easy part is interacting with the students. I mean, they inspire me all the time. We have wonderful kids, like any other group of young people. Sometimes they have challenges and issues, and obviously want to support them with that. But overall, we have a great student body who does amazing things, that they wow me every year in terms of what they do, thanks to the support and the great work of the educators and staff who work with them. So, you know, with that, I just, you know, at the end, thank my family. It is a demanding role. There's a lot of time that goes into it. So appreciate, you know, that you know, my wife and my daughters and the support that they give me, and my extended family. But, you know, I am very proud and pleased to be a part of the Shrewsbury community here as a resident as well, who was able to, I'm not quite done raising our family here, but we're almost there. And that very proud that I have two, and soon after next year to be three Shrewsbury Public Schools graduates, and it continues to be my honor and privilege to serve the community in this role. So thank you very much. But again, I think most of the gratitude belongs with all the folks who are doing the work day to day. So thank you, and again, much appreciated and humbled.
Thanks, Dr. Sawyer. Okay, we need a vote on the evaluation. So I need a motion that the committee vote to approve the formal evaluation document created by Ms. Fritz.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, the next item on the agenda is also under new business. It's a vote on the superintendent's contract. A vote of the school committee is required to authorize the chair to approve an updated employment agreement with the superintendent of schools. Dr. Sawyer did make a request to the committee for a 2.25% cost of living increase with no other changes to the contract. We did discuss in executive session prior and concur on the request. Any further comments or questions?
No.
Okay, there being none, I need a motion that the committee vote to authorize the chair to execute an updated employment agreement between the school committee and Dr. Joseph M. Sawyer as superintendent of schools that increases the superintendent's salary by 2.25% with no other changes to the agreement.
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes from school committee meeting held on June 5th, 2024 are enclosed. Any revisions or edits? All right, there being none, they will be accepted as written. We do need to enter into executive session tonight. Therefore, I need to request a motion to adjourn into executive session, A, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to the collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association, Units A and or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association and or the Cafeteria Workers Association, and C, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, non-union clerical and support staff and or administrators, including district administrators, principals, and or superintendent of schools. Purpose 2, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote is required. Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Sharif Kapoor?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.